What's up guys, it's my geography channel once again, and for this video I know we said I was going to do Uganda, but we're just going to do Africa. Okay, so Africa is one of the 7 continents, and and believe it or not, Africa is actually the second biggest continent right after Asia. The biggest country in Africa is Algeria, sitting in northern Africa. Because you see its size, it's very big. Let me get all the red borders is how big Algeria is. It's a big country. Sudan used to be the biggest country, but South Sudan split from Sudan, so that's why it's not the biggest anymore. But Sudan was the biggest. And same for Egypt, because back then Egypt owned Sudan, and since South Sudan wasn't a country, Egypt also owned it too. So Egypt was also one of another big countries, but then Sudan split from it. And yeah, now, well, fun fact about Egypt, it's actually a square country if you really look at it, kind of. It's kind of a square country. But anyway, Algeria is the biggest country in Africa. The second largest country is the Democratic Republic of the Congo, or DRC for short. And then the third biggest country is Sudan. Sudan is still a good country. It went from first to third. And then you have the Mediterranean Sea. The Mediterranean Sea is a sea separating Africa and Europe. Lots of countries in Europe have the Mediterranean Sea, like Turkey. Turkey is technically in Europe and in Asia, but it's actually mostly in Europe. Anyway, Turkey uses it, Bulgaria uses it, Greece uses it, Italy uses it, Albania, Greece, Monaco, Spain, even France, and Malta. Malta is a little small island country in the Mediterranean Sea between Europe and Africa, but it's still technically in Europe, but it's more closer to Africa. Well, other than this part, it's more closer to Africa than it is to Europe. But it's closer to Europe because of Italy's small land. Malta is a very small country. It's not big. Malta is about the same size as Rhode Island or Connecticut. But anyway, and then you have the Red Sea. The Red Sea is a sea separating Africa and Asia. Countries that use the Red Sea is Egypt, Sudan, Eritrea, and Djibouti. And also Yemen, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Israel. Well, no, not Israel, because they're up there. But Israel, they do have the Dead Sea. And Jordan and Israel also share the Dead Sea. The Red Sea is a sea separating Asia and Africa. Saudi Arabia is the country that has the longest coastline within the Red Sea. And then second is Egypt. Third is Sudan, and then third is Eritrea, because as you can see, Eritrea's coastline is way longer than Yemen and Sudan. Djibouti is the smallest country that has the smallest coastline along the Red Sea, but they also do have the Gulf of Tadjoura, and they have the Gulf of Aden shared by Somalia. The Gulf of Aden is sometimes called Somalia's Gulf, and there's actually a city in Yemen called Aden, and funny, it also sits on the Gulf of Aden, so that's a nice name. And then we have the Gulf of Guinea. The Gulf of Guinea is the same thing as the Gulf of Aden. It's a gulf, and lots of countries use it. For example, Cote d'Ivoire, Liberia is on the bed, Ghana, Togo, Benin, Nigeria, Cameroon, Equatorial Guinea, and Sao Tome and Principe, and Gabon. The Gulf of Guinea stretches all the way to Ivory Coast, all the way to Equatorial Guinea. Even Gabon uses it too. Not much, but it still uses it. The first country that has the longest coastline on the Gulf of Guinea is obviously Nigeria. And Lagos is another city. It's the biggest city in Africa and in Nigeria. It sits right on the Gulf of Guinea and on this strait. Let's see what it's called. And this is Murtala Mohammed International Airport. And Agege is another city in Nigeria. It's another city right near Lagos. And then this is Snake Island. Snake Island sits right on the Gulf of Guinea. And then the second country that has the longest coastline is Ivory Coast, third is Ghana, and fourth is Cameroon. Sao Tome and Principe is a small country, so it doesn't have much of its coastline is pretty small. And now we have the Indian Ocean. The Indian Ocean isn't a sea or a lake, it's an ocean. And countries that share the Indian Ocean is a lot. So we're going to start with it. It shares with South Africa, Mozambique, Madagascar, Comoros, Mayotte, Reunion, Mauritius, Tanzania, Kenya, Somalia, even Djibouti, Oman, Yemen, India, obviously because it's their sea, Pakistan, the Maldives, British Indian Ocean Territory, Sri Lanka, and Afghanistan, and Iran. And then there's the Gulf of Oman. Oman is its own gulf. It's separating Iran and Oman. Oh, it kind of rhymes. Iran and Oman. In Africa, there is a total of 54 countries in total. And now we're going to start by regions. In Africa, there's regions, obviously. There's north, south, east, west, and central. Every continent has that. Europe, Asia, Australia, they have it too. Africa, South America, and North America. Okay, so the region, so we're going to call every region. So we're going to start with North Africa. The countries in North Africa is Sudan, Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, Western Sahara. Those are all the countries. Countries in Central Africa are Chad, Central African Republic, Cameroon, Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, Republic of the Congo, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Angola. And then the countries in East Africa are Sudan, Eritrea, Ethiopia, South Sudan, Djibouti, Somalia, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, Tanzania, Mozambique, even Seychelles, and Madagascar is in Southeast Africa, but it's still part of Eastern Africa too. And same for Mozambique. Countries in Southern Africa are Namibia, Botswana, South Africa, Lesotho, Eswatini, Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Mozambique, and even Malawi. Now, countries in West Africa are Sao Tome and Principe. Sao Tome and Principe is in Central Africa and in West. Nigeria, Benin, Niger, Togo, Burkina Faso, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Liberia, Guinea, Sierra Leone, Guinea-Bissau, the Gambia, Senegal, Cape Verde, Mauritania, Senegal, Mali, Niger, and you cannot forget Cameroon. Cameroon's in Central, but sometimes it's in West, but it's really not in West. And Mauritania. Now let me make sure. Yeah, I got all the regions. Oh yeah, and I also missed Seychelles for East Africa, so I'm sorry. Now, the largest country in North Africa is Algeria. The largest country in Western Africa is Niger. It's either Niger or Mali. And then the largest country in Central Africa is the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The biggest landlocked the biggest country, it's not landlocked, but its coastline with the Atlantic Ocean is very, very small. Their coastline is not even Djibouti has a bigger coastline. Yeah. And then the Democratic Republic of the Congo claims is the big country. Now, the biggest country in East Africa is Ethiopia, and Ethiopia is also one of the biggest landlocked countries. The biggest country in Southern Africa is obviously South Africa. Their country size is bigger, and I think I did all of them, yes. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about history. lots of Europeans wanted Africa because Africa used to have lots of natural resources. So now we're going to talk why it's poor. The reason Africa is poor was because it wasn't always poor. Europeans pulled up onto the coast and then, well, not on East Africa. They pulled up on the coast of West Africa and then they started taking everything. It was the Italians, the British, and other European countries too. They took everything that natural resources Africa had, so that's why Africa is most of African countries are poor. Egypt is part of Africa, and it's also part of Asia for some reason. And Morocco is also part of Africa, but Morocco has a small border with Spain. But Africa wasn't always poor, but the Europeans put up on the coast, and then they just started taking everything Africa had: gold, natural resources, everything. And they took everything, so that's why Africa is poor. If it wasn't for them, Africa probably wouldn't be the poorest continent in the world. Because Africa is the poorest continent in the world. The richest continent in the world is supposed to be Asia, because I know it's Asia because the richest country in the world is China. We all know that. China has lots of big cities. It has Hong Kong, Shanghai, Beijing, Shenyang, Shenzhen, and Beijing, if I didn't forget that. And it also has Tokyo, Osaka, Sapporo, Fusaka, Seoul, Taipei, Manila, and lots of other Asian cities too. That's why it's populated. And Asia also has most of the world's population there. Africa comes in second. Now we're going to talk about how big the continents are in order. So Asia is the first biggest. Africa is second. The North America is third. South America is fourth. Europe is fifth. Australia is sixth, and then Antarctica is seventh.